On this day, exactly 100 years ago, two very disgruntled Hungarian representatives signed a peace treaty at the Grand Trianon Palace in Versailles, officially ending the Great War for Hungary. Now, to explain the Treaty of Trianon dealing with Hungary and its brother the Treaty of Saint-Germain dealing with Austria, we have to understand the very complicated state of Austria and Hungary at the end of the Great War. The end of the Great War for Austria-Hungary was anything but orderly. The decentralization of control across the entire empire, combined with food shortages bordering on a famine, resulted in mutinies, revolutions, counter-revolutions, wars, and new nation-states. It was a time of ideological clashes and political maneuvering by big and small players alike. So, what exactly happened? Well, a lot actually happened in a short amount of time, so to try to explain it in a hopefully comprehensive way, I'm going to try to give you an Austro-Hungarian-centric chronological overview of the major events at the end of the Great War. By the time of October 1918, it became clear to everyone in the Austro-Hungarian Empire that the war is going to be over soon, and therefore any existent imperial control within the country pretty much fell apart. This meant many local councils started acting as independent provisional governments, signaling the breakup of Austria-Hungary. 8th of October 1918. High-ranking people of society and politicians of the South Slavs in Austria-Hungary declared the People's Council, a representative council of all South Slavic people in Austria-Hungary. At this point, this council is still divided amongst the supporters of an Austro-Hungarian federation or complete secession from it. 7th of October 1918. The Regency Council of the German puppet Polish state, which was established a year prior, seeing that the Central Powers were growing weaker, announced its intention of creating an independent Poland. 13th of October 1918. In light of the intention of making an independent Polish state, the National Organization of Zakopane is formed and starts making preparations for secession. 14th of October. Romanians in Bukovina form an executive committee, proclaim independence from Austria, and start the process of incorporating Bukovina into Romania. This is actively protested by Ukrainians living in northern Bukovina. 16th of October. Emperor Charles tries to save the crumbling empire by an imperial manifesto, proclaiming the formation of a federal state with autonomous rights to all minorities. Even though this was embraced by some people, like the many aforementioned Federation supporters in the South Slavic People's Council, it was also hated by the more conservative German Austrians and especially Hungarians. Plus, it was too late in the war as the Allies already recognized the independence of Czechoslovakia in the summer of 1918, and on top of that, they had also decided by this point that they won't allow any continuation of Habsburg rule in Central Europe. 18th of October. Romanians in Transylvania declare the independence of Transylvania and start the gradual process of uniting with Romania. This is actively opposed by Transylvanian Hungarians and also Germans. However, the German-speaking population of Transylvania later acquiesces to uniting with Romania. 21st of October. The remaining 208 German-speaking delegates of the Austrian Imperial Council convene. Other delegates of the empire's minorities no longer recognize the Imperial Council. Seeing the empire dissolve into its ethnic components, the council establishes the Provisional National Assembly of German Austria. 23rd of October. The Second Polish Republic is officially declared and starts trying to consolidate its power. 24th of October. The Hungarian government, seeing that basically the entire kingdom was falling apart, recalls all of its troops from the front lines. 25th of October. The Hungarian Social Democratic Party, the Liberal Left Party, and the Bourgeois Radical Party form the Hungarian National Council headed by Mihály Károly, which, among other things, calls for the termination of the war, the independence from Vienna, the recognition of minority rights, universal suffrage, etc. 28th of October. Austria-Hungary officially starts pursuing armistice talks. That same day, the South Slavic Council sends a peace note to America without the Austro-Hungarian consent, meaning they were now acting as an independent entity. The Viceroy of Croatia reports this to the Emperor, who simply replies, "Do as you please." Now those are the words of a man who is watching his empire crumble before him. The same day, independence of Czechia is declared in Prague. And also that same day, the Polish Liquidation Committee, that sounds like something from World War II, anyways, was created. Its main goal was to hold order in Austrian Galicia before the Polish Second Republic was able to centralize all the various autonomous Polish territories. 29th of October. The South Slavic People's Council proclaimed the formation of the state of Slovenes, Croats and Serbs, and also the Serbs of Vojvodina proclaimed their own independence. That same day, Czechoslovakia is declared by both Czech and Slovak representatives. 30th of October. Slovaks declare independence of Slovakia and Martin, even though a day before then they declared the creation of Czechoslovakia. I don't know, I guess they were trying to tie up loose ends. Also on this day, even though acting as an independent entity since the 13th of October, the National Organization of Zakopane officially secedes from the empire, creating the Republic of Zakopane, although they will later relinquish power to the Polish Liquidation Committee. Also on this day, both Poles and Czechs living in Cieszyn Silesia established separate councils and declared the area under the control of the new Czechoslovakia or Poland respectively. A couple of days later, these councils will come to a tenuous demarcation agreement that will certainly not cause any problems later. 31st of October. The many disgruntled and now disbanded Hungarian soldiers that have returned home from the front start the Astor Revolution in Budapest led by Károly. The revolution is successful, and that same day Charles IV of Hungary has no choice but to accept Károly as the new Prime Minister of Hungary, who then promptly dissolves the Austro-Hungarian Union, proclaiming the independence of Hungary. However, even though now independent, Károly still wants Hungary to remain a kingdom. This same day, the state of Slovenes, Croats and Serbs start pursuing unification talks with the Kingdom of Serbia and Montenegro. These are however divisive because even though some Slovene and Croat politicians are for it, others want to establish the way the new Yugoslav kingdom is going to be governed before agreeing to a unification, while others like Stjepan Radic are completely against the unification. Also this same day, or 2 days later, sources aren't clear, the Hungarians living in Banat declare the creation of the Banat Republic. This republic is actively opposed by the Romanian and Serbian population living in Banat. 1st of November 1918. The West Ukrainian People's Republic is declared, a state which had a majority of Ukrainians but a very sizable minority of Poles. On top of that, it claimed the majority Ukrainian lands in Bukovina. Therefore, right after its accession, it became entangled in a conflict with the new Polish Republic and Romania. 2nd of November 1918. Károly's new Hungarian government, under the Woodrow Wilson's demand of pacifism, disarms the Hungarian military apart from a couple of troops. Károly was hoping that this preemptive disarmament will show the Allies that Hungary is willing to cooperate and therefore will receive a milder peace deal. On this same day, unbeknownst to the Austro-Hungarian armistice negotiations going on, Károly starts his own armistice negotiations with the Allied generals in Belgrade. 3rd of November. Austria-Hungary signs an armistice, officially effective a day later. Among other things, the Villa Giusti armistice designates an Italian occupation zone, coordinates the dismantle and division of the Imperial Navy, sets up a ceasefire on all Austro-Hungarian fronts, and permits all Allied armies to take control of any point within Austria-Hungary that they deem strategically important. 4th of November. Italian troops, to the protest of the self-proclaimed state of Slovenes, Croats and Serbs, started occupying Istria, Dalmatia and also southern Austria, as lined out by the Villa Giusti armistice. 5th of November. The Allied officers in Belgrade negotiating with Hungary only now learn of the Villa Giusti armistice and ask Paris whether this also applies to the new state of Hungary and if they should continue armistice talks with Károly. The reply says that Villa Giusti armistice does apply to the new state of Hungary, but continue the armistice negotiations anyways. This was most likely because the Allies were hoping for a more favorable, to them, armistice deal with Hungary over what they got with the Villa Giusti armistice. Ironically, Károly also continued with the Belgrade armistice negotiations because he was hoping to get a more favorable armistice deal for Hungary. 7th of November. Károly and his delegates reach an armistice agreement with the Allied generals in Belgrade. I will try to give an oversimplified view of the armistice talks and the main points discussed in it. Károly's main points during the armistice negotiations are as follows. 1. Hungary was under Austrian control at the start of the war, and therefore the Great War shouldn't be blamed on the now new and independent Hungary. 2. Károly's government will give every minority within Hungary, and I quote, maximum autonomy, which in their eyes satisfy Wilson's points of self-determination. 3. The post-war occupation of Hungary should be done exclusively by French, British and American troops, as the Hungarians fear if Romanian or Czechoslovak troops enter Hungary they will never leave and would raid the land. 4. Hungary should retain the right of administering its own land, even if under Allied occupation, with Croatia and Slovenia being exempt from this. 5. Czechoslovakia is to be forced by the Allies to allow coal shipments from Germany into Hungary, as Hungary has no coal supplies of its own, and winter was coming. The first point was quickly shot down by the Allies, who pointed out that Hungary with Austria had equal say within the Austro-Hungarian system, and therefore should be equally responsible for the war no matter if a new revolutionary government was now in power. The second point wasn't necessarily refused by the Allies, but they did already agree during the war to give almost all minority populated areas of Hungary to their respective nations, hence it was moot. The third point was also refused. The fourth point was allowed, and Hungary under the Belgrade Armistice was to retain administrative control over all of its land even if under Allied occupation. The fifth point was also allowed. The treaty also talked about all kinds of other stuff, like the specifics of reparation quotas, demilitarization, prisoners of war, demarcation lines, etc., but we don't have time to get into that. As it stands, Karoli is pretty happy with the treaty, as even though not everything went their way, they still will be allowed to retain administrative rights over the whole of Hungary, excluding Slovenia and Croatia, which was a victory for them. However, the treaty still needs to be ratified by the Hungarian parliament in Budapest and the Allies in Paris, so it is not official yet. 9th of November. Romania re-enters the Great War, renouncing the Peace Treaty of Bucharest. It mainly does this, even though an armistice with Austria-Hungary has already been signed, because it wants to make sure it will receive the lands promised to it by the Allies when it joined the war in 1916. The 11th of November. An armistice with Germany is signed, officially ending the Great War. On that same day, Emperor Charles, under the pressure from the Allies and also some of his subjects, relinquishes every participation in the administration of the state of Austria. He, however, never officially abdicates. It was his son, Otto von Habsburg, who officially renounced all claims to the throne in 1961, but I digress. 12th of November. The Provisional National Assembly of German Austria, now with no monarch, declares the Republic of German Austria. On the same day, Hungary, who still didn't ratify the Belgrade Armistice, is informed by Paris that the Allied commanders in Belgrade could have discussed only military matters, not politic ones, which means that all the political points of the armistice, like the very important administrative one, no longer apply. This means that the Belgrade Armistice is basically just an occupation treaty at this point. 13th of November. Emperor Charles officially recognizes Hungarian independence and also, just like with Austria, relinquishes every participation in the administration of the state of Hungary. This same day, the Hungarian parliament reluctantly accepts the Belgrade Armistice because, well, they have no choice. 14th of November. Allied troops, including Serbian, Romanian, and Czechoslovak, start entering Hungarian territory up to the decided demarcation zone. The Provisional Transylvanian, Bukovina, Slovak, Serbs of Vojvodina, etc. governments that declared their independence prior got gradually absorbed into their respective countries. However, as it will become clear, this was not without a fight. For example, unlike in the south or east, there was never any specific demarcation line set for Slovakia in the Belgrade Armistice, so Czechoslovak troops and Hungarian troops started fighting each other over Slovakia for the next few weeks. 16th of November. Due to Charles' withdrawal from Hungarian affairs, Karoli, who wanted to continue the Hungarian kingdom, had no choice but to now officially proclaim the First Hungarian Republic. 18th of November. The state of Slovene, Croats and Serbs, fearing further Italian expansion into their country, sent an official protest to the Allies about the Italian occupation. At the same time, they were also struggling to keep order in the state, and therefore the council finally decides to unite with the Kingdom of Serbia and Montenegro. They were also advised by the Allies to do so, as the Allies promised Serbians they will help them form Yugoslavia. 1st of December 1918. The Kingdom of Serbs, Croats and Slovenes is officially declared by the Serbian monarch. 3rd of December 1918. The Allies finally set a demarcation line in Slovakia, ordering Hungarian troops to withdraw, ending the Czechoslovak-Hungarian fighting, for now. 5th of December. In retaliation of Polish efforts to subjugate whole of Galicia, the Lemko-Rusin Republic is declared. Being Rusin, they didn't want to join Poland or the West Ukrainian People's Republic. However, the eastern half of the Lemko-Rusin Republic did want to join the West Ukrainian People's Republic, so they then declared independence from the Lemko-Rusin Republic to try to join the West Ukrainian People's Republic. That same day, the Germans in Western Hungary declared the Republic of Heinzenland, but this will get occupied by Hungarian troops just 2 days later. That is where I will conclude my chronological summary. As you may have noticed by now, Central Europe at the end of 1918 was in disarray, and even though my definitely not all-encompassing chronological presentation may make it seem a bit less chaotic, keep in mind due to communication issues, everything wasn't so straightforward as I presented it. For example, the whole Belgrade armistice negotiations are full of back and forth telegrams between Paris, the Allied commanders, the Hungarian embassy, the Hungarian parliament, all of whom always had to wait for each other's reply, only to sometimes receive a different reply the next day, resulting in a pretty confusing mess. Plus, while all of this was happening, the commanders on the front line sometimes didn't know an armistice was being negotiated or even signed and continued fighting. Sometimes these commanders knew of the armistice but continued pushing anyway so they could gain more land. On top of that, the sources from this period about the proclamation of these republics and what was politically happening aren't complete, so it's hard to tell sometimes what happened what day. But with all that said, in early 1919, this was roughly the state of land control in Central Europe by various political entities, with Austria and Hungary having very limited control outside of their core areas. And it was during this time that the Paris Peace Conference formally started, 18th of January 1919, with all the major new and old Central European nations sending their representatives. The very confusing events of the following years, along with the two very controversial Paris peace treaties that will eventually resolve this political mess, are such big topics that they deserve their own videos, both of which I will release next month. One on the 16th of July, the 100th anniversary of the Treaty of Saint-Germain coming into effect, and one on the 31st of July, the 99th anniversary of the Treaty of Trianon coming into effect. I know what you're thinking, 99th anniversary? I mean, today was the 100th anniversary of the signing of the Trianon, but I had to give you some background before dealing with it, hence we will have to settle with the 99th anniversary of the treaty coming into effect as the release date for that video. So if you don't want to miss those videos, please subscribe and hit the bell icon. This video was made possible thanks to my patrons, and special thanks to Brian Lafata. As always, my name is mlaser, and stick around for history.